My name is Ryan Gallagher. I'm the project manager for treasurehunter.media. One of the websites that I manage is called outsidergaming.com, and it primarily focuses on console gaming. The audience is really interested in, the latest sports games, new releases, as well as kind of retro games and classic titles that release every year. And we were interested in kind of hearing your perspective about the gaming industry as it is and as it relates to you and what you're kind of doing inside of it. So I guess I'll let you take it away. Give me a little bit about who you are and, a little bit of what you're working on right now and your professional background.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me. Well, my name is Mark Long. I'm CEO of Neon, and we're the publisher of Shrapnel. And Shrapnel is a blockchain-enabled, moddable AAA first-person extraction shooter. That's a mouthful, I think. And we're built on the Avalanche chain, and I'm particularly excited about the novel experiences that you can generate with blockchain in gaming. I'm a 28-year game industry veteran. I produced over 32 titles in that period of time. A lot of them forgettable, some of them pretty good. I published Hawken, Spec Ops, Blacklight, and produced a lot of first-person shooters, actually. This is my 14th Unreal title, so also have expertise in Unreal. Love Epic, love to tell Tim Sweeney and Kim Library, they make us look good every day. The Unreal 5 is just, the lighting model is amazing, by the way. Working in that, almost everything just instantly looks good as soon as you start putting it together. Prior to Neon, I was part of a publishing team for games at HBO. And there's a large group up here in Seattle where we're based that make the HBO Max app. And so we had a game team within that group.
Okay.
We spun out in February of 2021 to do our own thing. But the team that I spun out with, the other 8 people, were just phenomenally experienced developers who worked on franchises like Halo, Call of Duty, BioShock. And I'm really enjoying getting to work with such a seasoned team. All of us have done tours at Microsoft. So I was head of xCloud at Microsoft when I was there. And prior to that, I ran Meteor Entertainment, which published Hawken, that gorgeous mech first-person shooter, if you remember it, which recently got re-released by 505.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not the same team, the art team making it, and there's some disappointment, but still, I love mechs and I love first-person shooters. So. And then prior to that, I ran Zombie Studios for 22 years, and that's the beginning of my career.
Wow. That's I was checking out a little bit of press on you and just a little of the information that I could dig up, and yeah, your professional background, especially obviously in gaming, but in general entertainment is super impressive. So it's really cool to talk to you about the current state of gaming. I guess we're kind of at what it feels like a little bit of a juncture point. I recently had a conversation with another person in this space that's trying to push a Web3, I guess you would call it, type game that allows for, user generated content, NFTs and assets to be quote unquote minted. Where do you guys stand, I guess, within this? What do you, I know heard the term AAA gaming. In layman's terms, can you explain a little bit about, your angle in this for Shrapnel?
Yeah, I think, to address the elephant in the room, I think it's fair to say that regular gamers are up, to a degree, up in arms against blockchain and NFTs in particular. And I think they have some legitimate beefs, in the last decade, you've seen a shift from premium games to in-app purchases, but players never really own, what they're buying in a game, so they can get nerfed, or sometimes the game just goes completely out of business. It's a very different experience than what probably you and I, grew up playing, where I used to take a couple of PlayStation discs to GameStop and trade them in, maybe for $15 for all of them.
Maybe.
And yeah, and then apply that to a new game. And then they would turn right around and sell each one of those discs for $20, right?
Yep.
But I was happy with that transaction. I got some value out of what I invested in, or that the value was stored in that disk, and I could do other things with it, trade it with somebody else. And that's gone out the window. That doesn't exist anymore. So that was one of the first things that attracted me, was digital ownership, the idea that the stuff that I buy in a game belongs to me and I can do what I want with it. And I believe the markets will emerge where I'll be able to take all the assets, the NFTs that I got from Shrapnel, which would be like a John Wick skin maybe that I made, or
Sure.
a suppressor, magazine, stock for weapon, all these kind of Lego parts. And like you go to a grocery store coin machine, dump them all into what they call a market maker and get some fraction of the value back, and then apply that to another game. And as a game developer, I'm happy with that, even though, those guys will turn around like GameStop and sell maybe $200 worth of NFTs to somebody for $20. At least we get some fraction of revenue from it. And you get a new player who's arrived and is all buffed up and ready to have fun in the game. But beyond that, I saw also that you could give governance to players. So, as you're well aware, all of us as gamers are super invested. It's not just a game. I mean, it's a lifestyle. And we get upset when developers take the game a wrong direction. And, this is part of the overreach that gamers are also up against. Like when NFTs were kind of first introduced, maybe most players became aware when Ubisoft released a pair of pants and like a helmet that you had to do, what was it, like 160 hours of gameplay to be able to even get buy one of these pair of pants. They were like, what the hell are you guys doing? After buying games for premium and then nerfing them so that if I don't buy the DLC, I can't keep playing, and now you're going to do this to me? No. So I believe they have legitimate complaints, but it's all about the way that I think publishers have been trying to cram blockchain down your throat. Also, the quality of the games, like some of the games, like the play to earn games, which I hate, they're really Ponzi schemes, where people, and they're a grind, they're not actually even fun, which is, I think, the definition of a game. This is what players have been exposed to. And to a degree, to me, it feels like the beginning of free to play, in the kind of 2011 timeframe, when free to play started coming out of Asia, and developers and gamers are to a large degree kind of pretty dismissive, like, yeah, they're just crappy knockoffs of better games. And I don't care that they're free because they're just not good enough, even if they're free. But look at where we are, now over 10 years later. And I think that's where we are. So we're trying to make the first, or one of the first, AAA Web3 games. So besides governance and digital ownership that I talked about, there's all kinds of novel things that you can do with blockchain. Our game is designed to be modded to an unprecedented degree. I had this thesis watching my kids grow up, first, playing Minecraft and building their own worlds and learning to visually program when they're crafting, and then aging into Roblox, which is kind of like the Legos of game construction. And then when you become competitive and you move into Fortnite, well, now 50% of engagement by players is made by other players. But when you turn 18 to 35, or like you and I, you become a core competitive player, there's nothing for you to age into. And I don't think players are suddenly going to go, oh yeah, I don't want to make games anymore. I think it's the opposite. So our, not only are we extraction first-person shooter with the right kind of production values, we're also designed to be modded by the community at an unprecedented level. My thesis is players are ready for us to hand them the professional version of the Unreal editor and let them go at maps. And, in a nutshell, that's what we're hoping to do.
And So I guess one question that comes to mind when you say that is, how does one person's decisions or one person's visions affect the community of that game and their experience? And then even more so, how is that any change in that experience like communicated on over Shrapnel, or in a best case scenario for any type of interactive user generated experience?
Well, from our perspective, we're communicating, we're doing a pretty radical experiment,
Definitely.
which is normally games are developed, in secret by a team for a couple of years, and only until it's completely done do you start revealing the game. Ta-da! And then if players don't like it, it's complete disaster, right?
Yep.
But hopefully you're smart and you've found an audience. But players would love to have a voice. And so we're doing the opposite. We're taking feedback from players at the earliest stage. And as we release the early access version in December this year on the Epic Game Store, we want the community to tell us, what they would like to see in our roadmap. And you can use the Shrapnel token, the virtual currency of the game,
Okay.
to vote on the roadmap. You see the same thing in Dr. Disrespect's Dead Drop game. They're inviting the community in. They're doing frequent play tests with them. And I'm excited to play that game and Off the Grid. We're kind of the top three, if you will, AAA FPSs that are experimenting with blockchain. The danger, of course, and I worry about this for Dead Drop, is you get hardcore players that want the game to be unforgiving because they want it, to be hard. And
Sure.
then that excludes other players. So you run the risk of designing the game for a small number of players that are super happy with it, that are hardcore and part of your core community, and excluding, less skilled players. So that's a tough balance to strike, but it's also really interesting and novel experiment that nobody else is trying. And again, blockchain makes some of that possible. Really, the way I look at blockchain is it's a novel technology that's free. That's something really important to remember when players and other developers say, well, you could just do this with any other database. Yeah, that's really expensive to build those kind of databases, low latency databases. This technology is essentially free, open source, and we can build on it and continue to improve as it improves.
Yeah, so I guess going back just a little bit, I'm not so much of a gamer myself. I mean, I'm more of the background of journalism. I played games ever since I was young, from GameCube and PS2, PS3, and then finally now I'm more of like a Switch guy. So I'm more of a on the side type gamer. And obviously I keep up with all this, but in your opinion, how would you explain, a blockchain to someone like myself who, likes to play games, but isn't really, I wouldn't say a gamer like me is super interested in putting time in and kind of building a community. I'd rather kind of have something that's just handed to me and like is fun and I don't have to think much. How do you kind of reason that for like the everyday gamer? Or is this product pretty much only for someone that's much more involved?
No, it's the opposite. It's designed for you and me. Like, why do we even, it's interesting to talk about blockchain, but it's really not that important to the player experience. First of all, for us to make a great AAA game, you have to have frictionless onboarding, which doesn't exist in Web3 games, where they're forcing you to create a wallet and all these confusing addresses that if you get a single letter or digit wrong, God knows what happened to the money you just blew, right? So our approach is to make a great extraction experience first, and then as you win and you gain more skill, in extraction you enter a level and I don't beat you by murdering you and being the last one alive like a battle royale. I win by getting out with the most loot alive. So I might not even engage with you. And that's what's an interesting dynamic. A really fun thing about extraction is initially when you come in, and our maps are going to be really big, like a couple of kilometers across, low density of players, like maybe 20 or 30 in the final version. So you don't really actively engage with each other in the beginning. You spend a lot of time hunting around for things of value in the map. And then as extraction gets called at different intervals, you make a decision. Am I going to try and get out with what I've got? Or am I going to wait it out? And it produces some really interesting, exciting tempo. But as you gain skill as a player, you're going to start amassing stuff that you've taken away from me and the other players. And these are, they happen to be NFTs. So maybe a stock, a suppressor, as I described before, and or a special skin. And we'll start sending you push notifications. Hey, you've got 20, 40, $60 worth of stuff now. If you would just create a wallet, we'll give it to you. We're holding it for you now, but we'll give it to you. And then you can do whatever you want with it. And that means even cashing it in. And this is kind of the effect we think that will be really attractive. A game where you have to decide what you're going to take into the level because it could be taken away from you. That's the core of an extraction shooter. Where that has real value, that is kind of like, the reason a dude sits in front of a slot machine for 2 hours isn't because it's fun to push a button over and over again. It's because there's $20 or $100 in there.
Big time.
So
yeah.
you have something really at stake. And we think those two things in combination will produce for really exciting, high stakes gameplay. At least, that's been our experience so far in playtest.
Absolutely. I mean, that definitely makes more sense the way you just explained it now. The way, I've kind of touched on these topics before and done a little bit of research, obviously no expert, but the way I've likened this before, and tell me if this is right or wrong, is that users, like, I've likened it to social media almost. Like, users on social media take Instagram, Facebook, all this stuff so seriously, and they'll put a lot of time into it, posting photos, customizing, their profile however different ways, but they're only actually building the platform itself. They're not building anything for themselves at all. Whereas what you're trying to do, and what other games of this type, and is to give something back to the user and have them walk away with, some reward for their, a return on the investment of their time, as I'm kind of, if I'm hearing you right.
Yeah, that you've just articulated one of the more, radical values of the Web3 crowd: sovereignty, data sovereignty. Like, you don't really even own your identity on these platforms.
Yeah, it's crazy.
If it's for free, it's because you're the product, not them, right?
Exactly.
So they're monetizing you. What about the idea that I could create a digital identity and I could take around with me, not just to games, but to social networks? And the way I've structured permissions in that will decide whether or not I want you to have certain information. And because it's on blockchain, it means that I can get paid for you monetizing me, because I would take a percentage of that. That's all. I believe this is all inexorably coming. It just doesn't need to be crammed down your throat in the way that it has been. Ultimately, it's always about the game and whether it's fun. And then the things that you added to it, like Web3 and blockchain, are going to be an added value that create novel experiences for the player that they can't get in another game.
Very cool. So far, who is your audience right now? Like, where is the game in its current form, and who's playing it? And then I guess where does this go? Because I know you said coming in December you're going to release a new version, or the full version.
Yeah, in December. Well, blockchain enthusiasts, or crypto bros, as they're sometimes called, are, it's kind of like that joke. How do you know if somebody's a vegan? Don't worry, they'll let you know. Yeah. So crypto bros, like, they love for you to know about their passion for, the technology. So there's a core group that we have about a social reach of about 250,000 on Discord and Twitter. that are really excited about the game and follow this technology closely and the intersection of gaming. But our bigger audience comes in December when we release early access on the Epic Game Store and just are trying to make a better version of Escape from Tarkov. Tarkov's a great game. It's also, I like to say, the game that hates you for wanting to play it. It's so difficult, unforgiving, doesn't explain itself, but it's still addictive and fun. And like a lot of, there's existence proof in things like DayZ eventually became PUBG, and Dota became League of Legends. There's often an early flawed version that somebody like us comes along and said, you know what, I got an idea about how to make this better. And that's what we're hoping we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, all those games you just named are absolutely, smash hits for a lot of different crowds, and sometimes all the same crowd. So obviously, if that's, those are your influences, are those the same type of people you're targeting? Like if you have, this 250,000 really devoted, into crypto, Web3, this kind of stuff, will you be kind of targeting those other fringe players who maybe they don't care as much about the technology, but once they realize the sort of the funness of the game and the ROI factor, do you think that's who your audience is going to be?
It'll be the bigger audience. The truth is there are less than 1 million Web3 players today globally, and that is not enough to build any franchise on top of 1 million daily actives, I should add. So we have to go after regular gamers. And as I've said earlier, you're just not going to win them over by saying, hey, it's got Web3 and blockchain. That doesn't appeal to them at all. Matter of fact, it's a negative from their perspective. So it's really about making a great game, making it so players can mod it. And then that's the intersection of what we're trying to do. If you and I make a map and improve on the map that we created, then we can publish that map and get a rev share on whatever happens to that map. We can make skins for the game. I said, a John Wick skin would be cool. We can make 3D meshes. Even if you're that skilled, you'll be able to make objects, and you could completely reskin the game if you want to. I think it'll look like a lot like Fortnite's creator mode, though. Fortnite's creator mode is, no matter what, you're playing a battle royale session based shooter, but people are coming up with all kinds of novel looks and maps there. But ultimately, you'll be able to take it a completely different direction as players become more sophisticated, because the Unreal Engine editor that we use is the same tool they'll have, and they'll be able to make changes to game logic and things like that.
Got it.
It could be. I've been passionate about modding personally myself for a very long time. Like even in my own studios, developing games during the day, I would come home and mod games that I love. And just, if I could get them to do anything, and even if I could get like 11 people to play my map, I was thrilled with that, right? There's just there's some inherent joy about taking a game that you really love and making it your own. And my thesis is players are ready to do that at a level that you've never given them the opportunity to manipulate.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, I think you're right, because people are inherently creative and looking to do something in a way that makes sense to them, and everyone sees something in a different perspective. So 100%. I mean, everyone has a different character that they think is cool. Everyone has a different reason why they think that character is cool. Everyone has a map, it's really an individual. Yeah, everyone's an individual in that way. So I think you're right. But how right now and going into the future, how are people playing the game on PC or console, and then how are they making these edits or changes? How is that done?
So it's a PC only game currently, and the early access version we're going to release to the public is in December on the Epic Game Store. We only recently just we were in Austin, Texas for a conference, and we had the first public playing where anybody could walk up and do a play session with us there. But there'll be incremental releases of other components of the game. Like we're making it so you can mint your gamer tag. Then you'll be able to make decals. We've got a sticker maker so you can make stuff to apply to your weapon and character. Eventually, you'd be able to skin your own characters. And then finally, you'll be able to edit your own maps. And I should add generative AI, which is a twist I didn't see coming a year ago. I believe it's going to be a big component of our game, because if you could just type in, I want a Bob Marley AK-47 and get, a cool looking skin, and then save it, or eventually even be able to do text to mesh, text to 3D, and describe an object and give a 3D model. I believe all that's coming, and that's going to revolutionize user generated content in the same way that you can, manipulate stable diffusion and get amazing looking stuff in Midjourney.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, as soon as the chat GPT thing came out, one of my first thing was like, it's only as good as the prompt, right? It's only all the output is only going to be as good as the prompt. So yeah, if people lack the design skills or certain, I guess the design of something they want to create, that AI is going to be able to bring their vision, into reality, or into the game at least.
Yeah, I think it's going to be crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, who knows, but I think ultimately it's gonna make for an interesting story. I feel like the last couple of years have been something out of a movies we've watched. But I guess going back just to the reason we're doing these interviews on a site like Outsider Gaming or a site like leakfeed.net is to basically build community and kind of do more journalistic style content. People more easily digest videos, so that's why we want to have the video component, but also just having unique community driven content where people can put a face to a name. It's obviously like, it's journalism work. It's nothing kind of, we felt that the a lot of the journalism stuff, it's kind of gone over to sponsored content, and that's been happening for a while. But I mean, to kind of build that community, tell us a little bit about, to finish the interview, where you are in your gaming, in your gaming career, not professional, but just like, what do you have most fun with when it comes to gaming? What are some of your favorite games that are going to, influence Shrapnel, things like that? Where did you, what are your favorite things about gaming right now?
Well, as a developer, you kind of, to stay current, you have to kind of try everything. So I'm a bit of a dilettante. I'll download Atomic Heart and play the first 4 hours of, like, that thing is just gorgeous, right? But then there are games that you return to habitually, and those are the usual suspects: Apex, Valorant, CS:GO, Tarkov, if I want to be punished. And then I'm into story-driven games, and also handheld. Like, the Switch is terrific on a plane. It's just a great experience. I'm really curious about the PlayStation handheld too.
Okay.
I was recently in Japan, and in Akihabara, their electronic district, and it's always fun to go to Akihabara because you see stuff like, holy shit, man. they had like Steam Deck, handheld devices, but they were like $250.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think handheld PC gaming is going to emerge as a whole new category, and that's just super fun. Portable gaming's super fun. It lends itself to kind of console style, bigger, deeper story games. Recently, with my son, I'm going back and we're playing Cyberpunk. They're doing a great job of fixing Cyberpunk and then creating new content for it. That game in particular is something I'm enjoying right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I think for me growing up, it was, I mean, Pokemon, and then that's what got me back into the Switch, because I got the new Pokemon game, and I was like, whoa, this is everything I wanted to do when I was 12 years old. Like, this is freaking cool.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, the fact that it's come that far, and I feel like that's not even the tip of the iceberg of, it impressed me, and I'm not very hard to impress with the gaming thing. I'm sure, a higher level person would nitpick or whatever, but yeah, I think it just seems like everything we kind of thought in terms of gaming and entertainment is now just becoming reality, which is insane.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, that's all the questions I had. Did you have anything else you wanted to share? Is there anything going on that you're like, if there's one thing, a viewer, or, user on our website would take away from this is it? What would you like to finish on?
Oh, I just ask that you follow us on Twitter, Play Shrapnel, or go to shrapnel.com and sign up for updates, and let us bring you into the community to help us develop this game.
Very cool. Any dates anyone should watch out for if they want to get involved after this interview? Should someone wait until December, or should they come right to your website and see if they can start playing? What's that like?
I come now because we're doing a bunch of community interactions. Like I said, reserve your gamer tag, which we're calling call signs, create decals, and then sign up for updates on the game as we go forward into our launch this fall.
Awesome. And what's the hard launch date? December what?
We don't have a specific date, but
Not yet. Okay.
it'd definitely be before Christmas.
Cool. Yeah, that's the hot time, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed the conversation today.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. See you.
All right. Bye.